Kind black woman helps a lost boy with speech issue, not knowing his father is a millionaire. Marie Johnson stood at the bus stop, her eyes scanning the bustling street. It was just another ordinary afternoon in the small town of Oakwood, a quiet place where everyone knew each other. Marie had been a teacher at Oakwood Elementary for over 10 years, and she had grown fond of the community. She enjoyed the peace that the town offered, but she also loved the way the children's faces lit up when they learned something new. She had always felt a deep sense of purpose in her job, believing that she was making a difference, even in the smallest of ways. As Marie waited for the bus to take her home, she noticed a boy standing by himself. He looked out of place, alone in the sea of people hurrying along the sidewalk. His clothes were neat, but there was a sense of uncertainty in the way he stood. His eyes darted from side to side, as if he were looking for something or someone. It didn't take long for Marie to realize that the boy was lost. She could tell by the look on his face, a mix of confusion and unease. She stepped forward and gently approached him. "Hey there, are you all right?" she asked, her voice warm and kind. The boy hesitated at first, his eyes wide with uncertainty. He looked down at the ground, fidgeting with his hands. Marie could see the way his lips trembled, as if he was struggling to speak. The boy opened his mouth but said nothing. Marie waited patiently, giving him the space he needed. "It's okay," she said softly. "You don't have to be scared. Can you tell me your name?" The boy took a deep breath and looked up at her, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan," he said. "Hi, Ethan, my name's Marie. Are you lost?" she asked, crouching down to his level so she wouldn't seem so intimidating. Ethan nodded, still not looking her in the eye. I don't know where my bus is," he mumbled. Marie smiled gently, trying to reassure him. "That's okay, Ethan. Let me help you." She took a quick glance around and noticed the bus stop was not too far from the school. She had seen Ethan before, though not often. He was one of the quieter children in her class. Marie taught 5th grade, and Ethan had been a student of hers for the past few months. She knew he had been struggling with something, but she had never pressed him about it. She respected his space, as she always did with her students, especially those who seemed to need a little more time to open up. "Let me walk you to the bus," Marie said. "I'm sure we'll find it." Ethan didn't say anything but nodded, his small figure trailing behind her as they walked. As they made their way toward the school, Marie noticed that Ethan's movements were stiff, almost hesitant. It was clear that he was uncomfortable, but he didn't protest. She gently guided him, offering him a sense of safety in the unfamiliar surroundings. As they approached the school, Marie tried to strike up a conversation to help ease the tension. "So, Ethan, what's your favorite subject in school?" she asked, trying to make him feel more at ease. Ethan was silent for a moment, and Marie thought he might not answer. But then, almost shyly, he said, "I like math." Marie's heart warmed. She knew that many of her students found math difficult, but there was something about Ethan's quiet nature that told her he was more capable than he let on. "That's great," she said, smiling. "Math is a lot of fun once you get the hang of it. I think you're going to be really good at it." Ethan's face brightened a little at her words, and Marie could see the smallest glimmer of hope in his eyes. It was a small victory, but for her, it was a reminder of why she loved teaching. She knew the power of encouragement, especially for children like Ethan, who struggled to express themselves in a world that often moved too fast for them. When they reached the bus stop near the school, Marie noticed the bus was just pulling in. "There you go," she said, pointing to the bus. "You're all set." Ethan looked up at her, his face a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice still uncertain but a little steadier than before. Marie watched as he stepped onto the bus, feeling a sense of satisfaction in helping him. She had no idea how much this simple act of kindness would change both of their lives. That evening, after a long day of teaching, Marie sat at her kitchen table, sipping a cup of tea. She reflected on the encounter with Ethan. It wasn't unusual for her to help students, but there was something about Ethan that lingered in her mind. She had seen the way he struggled to speak, how difficult it was for him to connect with his classmates. He wasn't like the other children, who would eagerly raise their hands and share their thoughts in class. Ethan was quieter, more reserved, and often kept to himself. Marie knew that Ethan had a speech issue, though he rarely spoke about it. It was something she had noticed when he first arrived in her class at the beginning of the school year. He would often mumble under his breath or struggle to pronounce certain words. But Marie never pushed him. Instead, she tried to make him feel comfortable, encouraging him to speak at his own pace. She understood how difficult it could be for children to open up, especially when they were self-conscious about something like a speech impediment. She had seen it before with other students, and she always tried to be patient and supportive. Marie couldn't help but wonder about Ethan's home life. He never talked about his parents, and she rarely saw anyone come to pick him up from school. It wasn't unusual for children to have busy families, but Marie had always been curious about Ethan's background. She had heard whispers from some of the other teachers that Ethan's family didn't live in the neighborhood and that they were somewhat distant. But Marie had never let that affect how she treated him. To her, Ethan was just another student in need of a little extra attention, someone who deserved the same care and support as any other child. The next day, as she prepared for another day of teaching, Marie received a phone call from the school's principal. "Marie," the principal said, "there's a young boy here who's looking for you. He says he knows you and needs help." Marie's heart skipped a beat. She immediately thought of Ethan and wondered if something had happened to him. "I'll be right there," she said, grabbing her things and rushing out the door. When she arrived at the principal's office, she found Ethan standing there, looking as lost as he had the day before. But this time there was something different about him. He looked more worried and his eyes were filled with uncertainty. Marie approached him, offering a reassuring smile. "Hey, Ethan, what's going on?" she asked gently. Ethan hesitated, then looked up at her. "I'm scared," he whispered. "My dad, he's looking for me. He's really mad." Marie's heart went out to him, but she couldn't help but wonder what had happened. She promised to help him, not knowing that this was only the beginning of a journey that would forever change both of their lives. The days after their first meeting were a whirlwind for both Marie and Ethan. Every day after school, Marie made it a point to spend extra time with Ethan. She had seen something in him that she couldn't ignore, a quiet intelligence, a sensitivity that spoke volumes, even if he wasn't always able to express it clearly. He had been shy and withdrawn at first, but Marie knew that all he needed was someone to believe in him. She took it upon herself to be that person. The first few tutoring sessions were slow. Ethan would struggle to pronounce words correctly, often pausing to try and fix his mistakes. His face would redden with frustration, and he would sigh, the weight of self-doubt heavy on his shoulders. Marie could see the frustration building inside him, but she never let him give up. "It's okay, Ethan," she would say gently. "We're not in a race. Just take your time. You're doing great." Each word he pronounced correctly, no matter how small, felt like a victory. Slowly, he began to open up more, and Marie found that beyond his speech difficulties, there was a boy who had dreams and hopes, even though he often struggled to voice them. They worked on small exercises at first, simple words, phonetic drills. Marie would repeat the words with him, showing him how to move his mouth and tongue to make the sounds clearer. They practiced together, and slowly, little by little, Ethan's confidence grew. There were still times when he would get frustrated, when he felt like he wasn't making any progress, but Marie would always be there, encouraging him, telling him that every little step counted. One day, while they were practicing a particularly difficult set of words, Ethan stopped, his brow furrowed. "Miss Johnson," he said quietly, "do you think I'll ever sound normal?" Marie paused, feeling a lump form in her throat. She knew how difficult this question was for Ethan. It wasn't just about the words. He wasn't asking if he could speak better. He was asking if he could ever feel truly accepted. He wanted to know if he would always be seen as different. Marie took a deep breath, sitting down next to him. She had to be careful with her words, making sure she didn't just offer empty comfort. "Ethan," she said softly, "I don't think there's a normal way to speak. Everyone has their own voice, and that's what makes us unique. The important thing is that you're trying and you're getting better every day. Your voice matters just like anyone else's." Ethan looked at her, his eyes wide. "But it's hard," he said, his voice shaking a little. "I feel like no one understands me." Marie's heart broke for him. She knew that feeling of being misunderstood, and she wished she could make it go away for him. But she could see something else in his eyes, a flicker of hope. He was listening to her, and that was a sign that he was starting to believe in himself just a little bit more. "You're not alone," Marie said, smiling gently. "I understand, and I'll always be here to help you. One step at a time, Ethan. That's how we make progress." And that's what they did, one step at a time. With each lesson, Ethan grew more confident. It wasn't just his speech that was improving, his whole demeanor was changing. He was starting to stand taller, speak a little louder, and even smile more. His classmates began to notice the changes too. They weren't used to seeing Ethan talk more openly, but they could see that he was more comfortable in his own skin. It wasn't long before he started to interact more with his peers, shyly at first, but it was a big step for him. Marie couldn't help but feel proud of how far Ethan had come. She had always believed that the most important part of teaching wasn't just academic knowledge, but emotional growth, the ability to build confidence, resilience, and self-esteem. She had seen it in countless students over the years, but Ethan's journey felt personal to her. It was as if they were on this journey together, and with every word he spoke, they were both conquering something bigger than just speech difficulties. They were conquering doubt. It wasn't just in class where Ethan's transformation was evident. During lunch breaks, he started to sit with other kids. It was still a bit awkward, and Ethan wasn't exactly the life of the party, but it was a massive change. He was no longer isolating himself, and that was a victory in itself. One afternoon after class, Marie asked Ethan if he wanted to walk home with her again. She had noticed how hard it had been for him to interact with others, and she wanted to give him more time to talk, to practice speaking outside of the classroom. Ethan agreed, and they set off together, walking down the tree-lined streets toward her house. As they walked, Marie noticed that Ethan seemed to be more relaxed than usual. He wasn't fidgeting or looking around nervously. Instead, he was walking with a purpose, his eyes focused ahead. Marie smiled to herself. The change was subtle but real. "You know," she said casually as they walked, "you've been doing an amazing job with your speech. I think you'll be talking even better than before in no time." Ethan looked up at her, a shy smile playing on his lips. "Thanks, Miss Johnson," he said quietly. "I think I'm starting to believe that too." Marie's heart swelled with pride. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. This was why she had become a teacher, to help children like Ethan who just needed someone to believe in them. The progress they were making wasn't just about the speech. It was about him finding his voice, about him realizing that he had value and that he could accomplish anything he set his mind to. As they continued walking, Marie asked Ethan, "Do you like anything besides math?" "What do you do for fun?" Ethan's face lit up at the question, and for the first time he didn't seem hesitant. "I like drawing," he said, his voice filled with a quiet excitement. "I draw all the time at home, mostly superheroes and animals." Marie smiled warmly. "That's awesome. I'm sure you're really good at it. Maybe you could show me some of your drawings sometime." Ethan nodded, and for the first time Marie saw a real spark in his eyes. It was as if she had unlocked a piece of his soul, and he was beginning to open up in a way that felt natural and unforced. It was an important moment for both of them. Over the next few weeks, their sessions continued. Ethan's progress was steady, and his confidence grew with each passing day. He began to speak more openly, both in class and outside of it. He wasn't perfect, of course, and there were still moments of doubt and frustration. But Marie had never been more certain that he was on the right path. And then, one afternoon, just as they were finishing their lesson, something happened that took Marie completely by surprise. Ethan approached her, holding something tightly in his hands. She looked down at him, curious. I drew this for you," Ethan said, his voice shy but determined. He handed her a piece of paper, and Marie's heart skipped a beat when she saw the drawing. It was a picture of a superhero, a tall, strong figure with a cape and a bright smile. And standing beside the superhero was a smaller figure, a teacher with glasses and a kind face. The teacher was smiling, and the superhero was holding out a hand in friendship. Tears welled up in Marie's eyes as she looked at the drawing. "Ethan, this is beautiful," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." Ethan smiled shyly, looking a little embarrassed. "You always help me, Miss Johnson. I wanted to help you too." Marie's heart swelled with pride. She knew that the journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges ahead for Ethan, and for her as a teacher. But in that moment, she knew that she had done exactly what she set out to do. She had helped Ethan find his voice, his confidence, and his place in the world. As she looked at the drawing one more time, Marie realized that their bond had become something more than just teacher and student. It was a friendship, built on trust, kindness, and mutual respect. And for the first time in a long while, Marie felt that the world was exactly as it should be. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. Marie was going about her usual routine, preparing for the end of the school day. As the last bell rang, signaling the end of classes, She packed up her things and made her way to the teacher's lounge to grab a quick coffee before heading home. But as she walked down the hallway, she was stopped by the school's principal, Mr. Collins, who looked unusually serious. "Marie," he called as she passed by, "there's someone here to see you. A gentleman very well dressed says it's important." Marie paused and gave him a puzzled look. "A visitor? I wasn't expecting anyone." Mr. Collins gave a small shrug. "I'm not sure, but he insists on speaking with you. He's in the principal's office." Intrigued but slightly concerned, Marie followed Mr. Collins down the hallway. When they reached the principal's office, the door was slightly ajar. She heard voices inside. One of them was familiar. It was Ethan S. Marie knocked softly on the door before entering. As she stepped inside, her eyes immediately landed on Ethan, standing next to a tall man dressed in a tailored suit. The man looked to be in his 40s, with a sharp jawline and a stern expression, though there was a sense of warmth in his eyes as he looked at her. "Miss Johnson, thank you for coming," the man said, his voice calm but authoritative. He extended a hand toward her. "I'm James Carter, Ethan's father." Marie was taken aback. Ethan had never mentioned his father, and she was surprised to learn that he had a parent who looked so well-dressed and formal. She shook James' hand, a bit confused but polite. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Carter," Marie said. "I wasn't expecting you." James smiled, though it seemed somewhat reserved. "I understand. I wanted to speak to you in private. I owe you an apology for not introducing myself sooner. Ethan's mother and I. We've been very private, and we never made much of an effort to meet his teachers." Marie looked over at Ethan, who seemed unusually quiet. He was standing next to his father, looking down at the floor. She could sense the tension between them, but said nothing. She had known for some time that Ethan wasn't the most talkative child, and she had wondered about his family life. But she didn't want to jump to conclusions. James glanced down at his son, then turned back to Marie. "Ethan has told me how much you've been helping him with his speech, and I wanted to personally thank you for that. It's clear you've made a significant difference in his life." Marie felt a wave of modesty wash over her. "I'm just doing my job," she said, offering a small smile. "Ethan is a great student. He's been working hard, and I'm proud of his progress." James nodded. "I can see that, but it's not just about the lessons you're giving him, it's the time you've spent with him. I've been hearing about his improvement, and it's because of you, Miss Johnson, and for that I am incredibly grateful." Marie shifted uncomfortably, not quite knowing how to respond to the praise. She wasn't used to receiving such compliments from parents. She had always focused on the work, not the recognition. But there was something in James' words that felt sincere, and for a brief moment, she felt a surge of pride for the work she had done. Ethan remained quiet throughout the conversation, standing a little apart from them. Marie could sense that he wasn't comfortable with the attention, and she didn't want to put him in an awkward position. She turned to him, offering a gentle smile. "It's good to see you, Ethan," she said warmly. "How's everything going with your work? You've been doing a great job in class." Ethan glanced up at her for the briefest moment, his eyes flickering with something, maybe gratitude or maybe just shyness. He gave a slight nod but didn't speak. Marie didn't mind. She knew it would take time for him to open up more, especially with someone like his father in the room. James seemed to notice the silence as well, and he cleared his throat before continuing. "Actually, that's why I'm here," he said, shifting his tone. "I want to thank you properly for everything you've done for Ethan. I've decided to offer you something I think you'll appreciate." Marie raised an eyebrow. "Offer? I'm not sure I understand," she said cautiously. She wasn't in this job for money or recognition. She loved teaching, and that was enough for her. James smiled, a little more warmly this time. "I'd like to offer you a generous donation to the school, but more specifically, a scholarship in your name. For children who need help with speech or who are struggling in ways similar to Ethan. It would be an ongoing fund, and I'd like to make sure that children who need that extra attention can receive it, thanks to you." Marie's mouth went dry. She hadn't expected this. A scholarship fund? She wasn't sure what to say. This kind of generosity was far beyond anything she had ever imagined, and it left her speechless. I don't know what to say," Marie stammered, feeling overwhelmed. "That's incredibly generous of you, but I can't accept something so extravagant." James held up his hand, gently interrupting her. "Please, Miss Johnson, I insist. I've seen the difference you've made in Ethan's life, and I know you're someone who deserves this. You've worked tirelessly for years, and I believe this is the least I can do to show my appreciation. The scholarship would allow you to help many more children like Ethan. You'd have the resources to make an even bigger impact than you already are." Marie took a deep breath, processing his words. She had never considered the possibility of something like this. A scholarship fund in her name? It was almost too much to fathom. She had always felt that her job was to help the kids in front of her, not to expect anything in return. But now, faced with such a generous offer, she had to consider it. "But I don't want anything to change," she said carefully. "I don't want to lose the personal connection I have with my students. I just want to help them. I don't need a big name or a large donation." James nodded understandingly. "I respect that," he said. "I'm not asking you to change who you are or how you work. The scholarship would simply be a tool, something that can help you do more of what you're already doing. If you choose to accept, I would be happy to stay out of the way. It's all about supporting you, not taking away from what you're already doing." Marie looked over at Ethan, who was still standing quietly by his father's side. She could see that this had been a big moment for him too, in his own way. He may not have understood all the details, but he knew that his father's generosity was linked to the help he had received from Marie. "Let me think about it," Marie said finally. "This is a lot to take in, and I need some time to consider the best way to move forward." James smiled again, his expression softening. "Of course, take all the time you need. Just know that whatever you decide, we're incredibly grateful for everything you've done." With that, he extended his hand once more, and Marie shook it. "Thank you," she said quietly. As she left the principal's office, she couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. On the one hand, she was deeply moved by James' generosity, but on the other, she felt conflicted. She had always believed that teaching was a calling, something done for the love of children and learning, not for financial gain. Could she really accept this kind of offer and still remain true to the values that had brought her into this profession? She glanced down at Ethan as they walked out of the office together. He looked up at her with a shy smile, and for the first time in a long while, Marie felt that spark of hope for him. Whatever came next, she knew that Ethan had made incredible progress, and that in itself was a victory worth celebrating. Marie sat at her kitchen table, the letter in front of her unopened. It had been a week since her meeting with James Carter. Since that day, she had found herself unable to stop thinking about the offer he had made. A scholarship fund. A chance to help children like Ethan, who struggled with their speech, who felt misunderstood and alone. The idea had seemed almost impossible at first, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that it could be a game changer, not just for Ethan, but for many other children. Yet the more she thought about it, the more conflicted she became. Marie had always prided herself on her ability to connect with her students on a personal level. To her, teaching had never been about accolades or recognition. It had been about the one-on-one moments, the small victories, and the quiet joys of watching a child grow. Could she continue to offer that level of care and attention if a large scholarship fund was attached to her name? Could she balance the impact of such a gift with her desire to remain humble and focused on her work? She had spoken to a few close friends about the decision. Some encouraged her to take the opportunity. It was a rare chance to expand her reach and help even more children. Others were more cautious, urging her to be careful about accepting something so grand. It was a delicate balance, one she wasn't sure how to navigate. The letter in front of her was the final piece. It was from James Carter confirming his offer to set up the scholarship fund. If she signed it, it would be official. She would have the resources to make a real, lasting difference. But would it change the way she worked? Would it change her? Marie took a deep breath and finally opened the envelope. Inside, the letter was brief but clear. It outlined the details of the scholarship, how it would be managed, who would be eligible, and the ways in which she could use the funds to support children with speech difficulties. There were no strings attached, no demands for recognition. It was a simple offer of support for the work she had already been doing. But still, the weight of the decision was heavy. Marie leaned back in her chair, staring out the window at the quiet street outside. She had always felt that teaching was her true calling, her way of making a difference in the world. But now, she was being offered something far beyond what she had ever imagined. The scholarship could open doors for so many children, children who might never have the opportunity to get the help they needed, children who might be struggling silently, just like Ethan had been. As she pondered the decision, Marie's mind wandered back to the first time she had met Ethan. He had been so small and unsure, standing at the bus stop with that lost look in his eyes. It had been a simple act of kindness, a walk home after school that had started their journey together. Marie hadn't known then that it would lead to anything more, but over the weeks she had seen Ethan blossom. She had watched as his confidence grew, as he spoke more freely, and as he started to find his place in the world. And though she had been proud of him, Marie had always felt that it was his effort and resilience that had made the difference, not just her tutoring. But with the scholarship, she could help so many more children. She could create a safe space for them, just like she had for Ethan. She could provide resources, support, and guidance to those who needed it most. The idea of helping more children, of making a real difference in their lives, was enough to make her heart swell with hope. But then, there was the other side. Would the scholarship change the dynamic of her work? Would it make her feel more like a businesswoman than a teacher? Could she still maintain the personal connections with her students that she so deeply valued? Or would the pressure of managing a large fund distract her from what really mattered? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Marie stood up, her mind still swirling with the decision. She opened the door to find Ethan standing on the porch, his hands in his pockets, his eyes hesitant but hopeful. "Hey, Miss Johnson," he said softly, his voice a little quieter than usual. Marie smiled warmly at him. "Hey, Ethan, what's going on?" He shifted on his feet, looking a little uncomfortable. "I was wondering if I could talk to you for a minute. I mean, if you're not too busy." Marie stepped aside, allowing him into the house. "Of course, come in. What's on your mind?" Ethan hesitated for a moment before speaking, his gaze on the floor. I just wanted to say thank you for everything, for helping me, for not giving up on me." Marie felt a lump form in her throat. She had heard Ethan express gratitude before, but it had always been in small ways. Today, however, there was a sincerity in his voice that she hadn't heard before. "You've done all the hard work, Ethan," she said gently. "I'm just here to guide you. You've come so far already, and I'm really proud of you." Ethan looked up at her, his eyes shining. "I know, but I wanted you to know that you're the reason I'm getting better. I don't think I would have made it this far without you." Marie's heart swelled with pride, but at the same time, she felt a wave of uncertainty. She had been thinking so much about the scholarship, about the bigger picture, that she had almost forgotten the true impact of her work. It wasn't about the money or the recognition. It was about the children, about the moments when they found their voice, when they found the courage to speak up. Ethan took a deep breath, his expression growing more serious. "I know my dad offered you that scholarship thing. I know it's a big deal, but I just wanted to say if you decide not to take it, I'll still be happy. I don't want you to feel like you have to do something just because of me." Marie looked at Ethan, his words cutting through the fog of her thoughts. He had no idea how much his words meant to her. He was the reason she had become a teacher in the first place. The kids, the relationships, the chance to make a real difference. He had reminded her of what mattered most. "Thank you, Ethan," Marie said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "I appreciate that, but you've taught me something too. You've taught me that sometimes the biggest reward comes not from what we get, but from what we give." Ethan smiled shyly, his eyes full of gratitude. "I'm glad, and I just wanted to say I think you're gonna make the right choice. You always do." Marie chuckled, feeling a lightness in her chest. "I'm not so sure about that, but I'm going to try." As Ethan left her house that evening, Marie stood at the door, watching him walk down the street. She realized that no matter what decision she made about the scholarship, she would always remain focused on what truly mattered: the children she taught, the relationships she built, and the impact she had on their lives. Whether she took the scholarship or not, she knew one thing for sure. She would continue to help kids like Ethan, who just needed someone to believe in them. And that, she realized, was all the reward she needed. It had been several weeks since Marie's conversation with Ethan, and the uncertainty that had been weighing on her heart was finally starting to fade. She had spent a great deal of time reflecting on the offer from James Carter, the scholarship fund that could potentially change the lives of many children. She had even spoken to her friends and colleagues, gathered their advice, and considered the pros and cons. But at the end of the day, it all came down to what felt right for her, what would allow her to continue doing what she loved without losing the core of who she was as a teacher. Marie had made her decision. She was going to accept the scholarship. But not in the way that James had intended. She would accept it on her terms, using the funds to help children who truly needed support, but still maintaining the personal connections that had always been the foundation of her teaching. She didn't want the money or the resources to change the way she worked or the way her students saw her. It was important to her that the work remained about the children and not about recognition or prestige. One evening, after the school day had ended, Marie sat down to write a letter to James. She had spent hours crafting the words carefully, making sure that they conveyed both her gratitude and her desire to keep her teaching personal. She had decided to meet him in person to discuss the scholarship and explain her approach. When the letter was finally finished, Marie felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew it was the right choice. The next morning, Marie dropped the letter off at the school's office, asking Mr. Collins to forward it to James. She was nervous, but she knew that whatever happened, she had made a decision that aligned with her values. She wanted to help as many children as possible, but she also didn't want to lose the magic of teaching, the quiet moments of connection, the joy in seeing a student's eyes light up when they finally understood something. That afternoon, she received a call from James. He had read her letter and wanted to meet with her right away. He was eager to hear more about her approach and how she intended to use the scholarship fund. Marie agreed to meet him the following week, and she spent the next few days gathering her thoughts and preparing for the conversation. The day of the meeting arrived, and Marie found herself sitting across from James at a small cafe in the center of town. He was dressed in a suit again, his demeanor calm and professional, but there was an understanding in his eyes. He had clearly read her letter carefully and was prepared to listen. "Thank you for meeting with me, Marie," James said, his voice warm. "I've thought a lot about your letter, and I admire the way you're approaching this. It's clear to me that you care deeply about your students, and that's something I truly respect." Marie smiled, feeling a wave of relief. "Thank you, James. I appreciate your understanding. I've always believed that teaching is about more than just giving kids knowledge. It's about creating connections, helping them believe in themselves, and giving them the tools they need to grow. I don't want to lose that personal aspect of teaching." James nodded thoughtfully. "I completely understand, and I respect your decision. My offer was meant to help, not to change the essence of what you do. I believe in your vision, and I'm happy to support you in any way I can." Marie's heart lifted at his words. She had been worried that he might not understand, that he might see her decision as a rejection of his generosity. But instead, he seemed genuinely supportive of her approach. "I'm so glad you understand," Marie said. "The scholarship fund can do great things, but I want to make sure that it's used in a way that stays true to my values. I want to help as many children as I can, but I want them to feel seen and heard, not like they're just a number in a system." James leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. "I believe that's exactly what the scholarship should do. It should provide opportunities for children, but it should also respect their individuality. I'm fully on board with your plan, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure it's a success." Marie felt a surge of gratitude. She had been afraid that by accepting the scholarship, she would somehow lose the personal touch that made her a good teacher. But James had made it clear that he supported her vision and was willing to help her implement it in the way that felt right for her. "Thank you," Marie said, her voice filled with emotion. "This means a lot to me. I want to make sure that the scholarship is a resource that allows me to connect with more children, just like I've connected with Ethan. I want to be able to give them the same kind of support and encouragement that I gave him." James smiled warmly. "I know you will. And I think Ethan would be proud of what you're doing. You've already made a huge impact on his life, and now you're going to be able to help even more kids. I think that's something really special." Marie felt a lump in her throat at his words. Ethan had come such a long way since that first meeting at the bus stop. He had worked so hard, and he had made progress in ways that even she hadn't expected. But now, as she looked at the bigger picture, she realized that Ethan's success wasn't just about him. It was about all the other children who had the potential to overcome their struggles, just like he had. "I hope so," Marie said softly. "I just want to help them believe in themselves. I want to show them that they're capable of more than they think." James nodded again, his eyes filled with understanding. "I have no doubt that you'll do exactly that, and if there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." The rest of their conversation was filled with more details about the scholarship, how the funds would be allocated, how they could work together to ensure it reached the children who needed it most. By the time they finished, Marie felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. She had made the right choice, and now she had the support she needed to turn her vision into reality. As Marie left the cafe, she felt a lightness in her step. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she had made the decision that would allow her to continue doing what she loved. The scholarship wasn't just about money. It was about creating opportunities for children, giving them a chance to succeed, and making sure they felt valued and supported every step of the way. That evening, as she sat down to write a thank you note to James, Marie reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about Ethan and all the other children she had taught over the years. She thought about the small victories, the quiet moments of growth, and the joy she felt every time a student found their voice. And she realized that, no matter where this journey took her, she would always stay true to the heart of teaching, helping children find their confidence and their place in the world. The scholarship fund was just the beginning. Marie knew that her work had only just started, and she was more determined than ever to make a difference. She had found a new sense of purpose, a renewed passion for her work. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, she knew that she would continue to help children like Ethan, children who needed someone to believe in them. And that, Marie thought as she signed her name to the letter, was the greatest gift of all. Months had passed since Marie made the decision to accept the scholarship fund, and her life had changed in ways she had never imagined. The support from James Carter had opened up so many doors for her, and she had been able to help more children than ever before. But through it all, the heart of her work remained the same, the personal connections she made with her students. The scholarship had never taken away from that. Instead, it had amplified her ability to connect with children who needed her the most. Marie had worked hard to ensure that the scholarship was used in a way that stayed true to her values. She had established a program within the school that provided additional speech therapy, mentorship, and emotional support for children struggling with their speech. The money from the fund allowed her to hire extra staff, buy necessary equipment, and offer tutoring sessions that had never been possible before. It had given her the resources she needed to reach more children, to help more kids like Ethan who felt left behind. Ethan, too, had continued to grow. Now in middle school, he was thriving more than anyone had ever expected. His confidence had skyrocketed, and he was becoming an active participant in class. He wasn't the shy, withdrawn boy who had once struggled to speak. He was now a student who raised his hand in class, who laughed and joked with his friends, and who stood tall with a newfound sense of self-worth. Marie watched him with pride, knowing that his success was a result of not only his hard work, but also the support he had received from her, and the opportunity that had been created through the scholarship. One afternoon, as Marie was wrapping up her lesson for the day, Ethan approached her after class, a nervous but excited look on his face. Marie smiled at him, knowing he had something important to say. "Miss Johnson," Ethan began, his voice a little shakier than usual but still stronger than it had been in the past. I wanted to thank you." Marie raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "Thank me for what, Ethan?" Ethan shifted his feet, looking down for a moment before meeting her gaze. "For everything, for helping me, for giving me the chance to find my voice. I don't think I'd be the same person if you hadn't been there." Marie felt a lump form in her throat. She had heard Ethan express gratitude before, but there was something in his words now, something deeper. It was a reminder of how far they had both come together. "You've done the hard work, Ethan," Marie said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've just been here to guide you." Ethan shook his head, his eyes filled with sincerity. "No, you don't understand. It's because of you that I'm able to do the things I can do now. You believed in me when no one else did. You helped me find my voice." Marie felt her heart swell with pride. This moment, this connection, was everything she had hoped for when she became a teacher. She had wanted to make a difference, to help children find their confidence, and now she was seeing the results of that work. Ethan wasn't just doing better academically, he was thriving emotionally. He was becoming the person he had always been capable of being. "I'm proud of you, Ethan," she said, her voice full of warmth. "You've come so far, and you're going to keep going." "I have no doubt about that." Ethan smiled, his face lighting up with gratitude. "I hope so, I really do. I want to make you proud." "You already have," Marie replied, her heart swelling. "You already have." As the weeks passed, the impact of the scholarship fund continued to grow. Marie had expanded the program to include more students, some of whom had similar struggles to Ethan's. The word spread, and soon, more children were receiving the help they needed. Marie had even started working with local community organizations to provide additional resources for families who couldn't afford private tutoring or speech therapy. She had turned the scholarship into something much bigger than she had originally envisioned, something that was making a real difference in the lives of the children and families in her community. One day, as Marie was organizing the files for the program, she received a letter from James Carter. It was a simple note, but it meant the world to her. In it, James expressed his admiration for the work she had done with the scholarship and the program. He told her how proud he was of the difference she was making and how honored he was to have been a part of it. But the most touching part of the letter came at the end. "I never doubted your ability to change lives, Marie. You have done far more than I ever imagined. And I know that the children you're helping now will carry the lessons you've taught them for the rest of their lives. Thank you for making the world a better place, one child at a time." Reading those words, Marie felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. The scholarship had turned into something far greater than she had ever expected. But it wasn't just the money or the resources. It was the people she was helping. It was the children who were now finding their voice, who were no longer afraid to speak up and be heard. It was the knowledge that she had made a real difference in their lives. As the years passed, Ethan continued to excel. He graduated from middle school with honors and went on to high school, where he became an active member of the debate team. His speech had improved so much that he was no longer self-conscious about speaking in front of others. In fact, he now loved the challenge. Marie watched from the sidelines as Ethan stood in front of large crowds, his voice clear and confident, and she couldn't help but feel proud of how far he had come. He had not only conquered his speech difficulties, he had surpassed every expectation that anyone, himself included, had ever set for him. Ethan came back to visit Marie often, telling her about his achievements and sharing his dreams for the future. He had started talking about college, about becoming a lawyer one day. Marie listened to him with a smile on her face, knowing that his success wasn't just about his academic performance, it was about his growth as a person. He was now a young man with a future full of possibilities, and it was all because of the help he had received. One day, as they sat together in the teacher's lounge, Ethan looked at Marie with a serious expression. "Miss Johnson," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about what you've done for me, and I want to do something for you. I want to give back." Marie raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Ethan smiled, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I want to start a scholarship fund, just like the one you got. But I want it to be for other kids who, like me, just need someone to believe in them. I want to make sure no one else has to feel like they're alone in this." Tears welled up in Marie's eyes as she listened to Ethan's words. It was everything she had hoped for. She had helped Ethan find his voice, and now he wanted to pay it forward to help others find their voice too. It was a full-circle moment, a testament to the power of kindness, patience, and belief in one another. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan," Marie said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've come so far, and I know you're going to change the world just like you've changed yours." Ethan smiled, his face full of determination. "Thanks to you, Miss Johnson, you showed me that I could do it. And now I want to help others do the same." Marie knew that this was the greatest reward she could ever ask for. It wasn't the scholarship, the money, or the recognition. It was seeing the impact she had on her students' lives, knowing that she had helped them realize their potential. And as Ethan walked away that day, promising to start his own scholarship fund, Marie felt an overwhelming sense of pride and gratitude. She had made a difference. And now Ethan was making a difference too. The legacy of kindness, belief, and love for learning would live on, one child at a time.